This is a broadcast from the Pop Cult Pod.
Broadcasting from an undisclosed location in Ireland, known as the Pop Cult Compound, where the craze for film, television, video games, and much, much more. A proud part of the Phoenix Wrestling Network comes the Pop Cult Pod, the only podcast with an actual cult following, hosted by your cult leader, Tompott.
Oh, it has been too long. Just when you thought it was safe to go back to your podcast feed, the Pop Cult Pod has returned. That's as spooky as it's going to get. This will probably drop around Halloween. But I have nothing Halloween-centric because I've been trying to get this show out for a while. Let's get caught up first. I love what you've done with your hair. Have you lost weight? You look lovely. Yeah, the family's fine. Thank you for asking. I mean, you didn't ask, which was kind of rude, but I assume you were going to. Anyway, and we're all caught up. We have maybe a few things we need to get out of the way first. Firstly, I'm sure you're probably wondering why the big long delay. And there's a couple of answers to that. The last episode was the first episode on the Phoenix Wrestling Network, which was, a soft launch. We kind of put out a lot of stuff out there just so people could say, hey, this is what we can expect on the network. Great. At the same time, we're hoping, as far as I know, and it's out of my hands really, to do more consistent launch, more consistent content coming up soon. I'm going to hopefully try to stick to every 2 weeks from now on, which is normally the case anyway. I very rarely take a break as long as it was. But to be honest, I was working a lot on stuff for YouTube. I don't think I even mentioned YouTube in my first episode, which is annoying because probably going to be more listened to a lot of the episodes. And that's what I do for most of my time, a lot of reviews, that kind of thing go up on YouTube and not on the podcast. So check that out, Pop Cult Pod on YouTube, if you get a chance. A lot of stuff going up there lately. I also just had a lot of stuff to work on. In the meantime, I also got to announce at a Phoenix Wrestling show, which was awesome. Hopefully it won't be the last we get of that. And is there anything else I need to say? Not really. I think we should just get on because the benefit, and maybe even a drawback for me, is that in such a large break, the news moves on. Unfortunately, news keeps going. And there's way too much of it to cover. So let's try to cover as much as we can. And as I've done before, believe it or not, I did this before I had a wrestling connection. Ladies and gentlemen, well, it's a big show, yeah.
Not just news, not just new news, but the new.
I should have changed that to Boo Boo Boos for Halloween. That would have been awesome. But we don't have time, goddammit, there's too much news. First of all, we have a load of casting news. First off, Sam Neill, Jeff Goldblum, and Laura Dern, I think the three people I need to say, the original cast of Jurassic Park are returning for Jurassic World 3, which is fine, I guess. I don't really care about the Jurassic World movies anymore. They've kind of not been very interesting in my opinion. And they brought Jeff Goldblum back in the last movie, and that sucked. And they had nothing to do with him. He was literally like, I bet you they filmed that in a reshoot, and they had him for one day, because he literally was in the start of the movie being like, these dinosaurs are beautiful creatures, and if you've messed with them too much, chaos theory. That's what he said, something along those lines, I'm sure. And then at the end, he was just like, "Hey, you fucked that up, didn't you?" Which is also word for word, actually. He even sounded like that. It was Jeff Goldblum at the start of the movie, and then the second half, he came in like, you fucked that up, didn't you? Like some sort of Kerry Farmer. I don't know what to make of this, really. I don't think they ever needed to make another movie after the first Jurassic Park, but because if we're honest, most of them have been pretty average at best, and it looks like the next movie is going to be total schlock. So yeah, why not bring him back? Who cares, really? But it doesn't make the movie any better. I don't really care, frankly. I'm not saying that is what I'm trying to say. Matrix 4, another entry that I can't say I'm up to date with. I think since we last talked, actually, I said I hadn't seen any of the Matrix sequels. I just watched the first Matrix sequel, that being the Matrix Reloaded. Not good. And apparently the third one's even worse. So awesome. Matrix 4. Yahya Abdul-Mateen has joined the cast officially. He is apparently rumoured to be playing some version or some character connected to Morpheus, who was Lawrence Fishburne's character in the original movies. There was a rumour a long time ago, before Matrix 4 was even confirmed, that they wanted Michael B. Jordan to play a young Morpheus. So whether or not this is that role, we don't entirely know. Yahya Abdul-Mateen, of course, was Black Manta in Aquaman. He's currently in the Watchmen TV series. Sure, good enough casting. Again, we don't know enough to go on to say how this is going to play out. So Neil Patrick Harris is also involved, which is a bit of an odd bit of casting. Who is he in the film? We have no idea. I could kind of see him maybe being... Oh, do you know what? I was going to say I could see him being like, some sort of overseer character, like someone who's kind of in charge of the Matrix. But I could also maybe see him as an agent. I don't think he would be. I think he'd need to be a bit more muscular, a little bit more intimidating or sinister. He's got very soft features to be playing that. But what I was thinking is I could probably see him on like a Matrix team, like they kind of had those hacker guys. I could see him in that role maybe. I don't know. Jada Pinkett Smith is rumoured to be coming back. I don't know why. I guess because she's a bigger name then than she was now. No, she's a bigger name now than she was then. There we go. That's the right order. That's how you speak. I wouldn't have even really known anything about her character except I played that awful Matrix video game back in the day, Enter the Matrix. She was Naomi, I think it was. Yeah, fine. I don't know. I thought I'd have a bigger reaction to that news. It doesn't really matter. Who cares? Matrix 4, continues to be happening, I guess. And those people are in it. Yeah, this casting news sucks. I have no real interest in any of these. We do have casting interest in this, though. And that is the Batman movie, of course. It's starring Robert Pattinson, whatever variation of name. R. Bats is one I like to use. This is the one being directed by Matt something. The guy, Planet Ace guy, Matt Reeves, there we go. This is basically what this podcast has become, isn't it? Just a man slowly losing his memory. I'm probably going to forget that again next week, and it'll take even longer to remember it. This is a chronicle of my downfall. Just left a little silence there, so you could just think about for a sec what you're listening to. Anyway, back to movie news. They have cast Catwoman for Matt Reeves' Batman, Zoe Kravitz. Right. I don't mind that casting. I've none against it. Obviously there's racist people being like, oh! The stupidest thing I've heard is people being like, there's, Catwoman isn't black. Meanwhile, we've already had a black Catwoman in Halle Berry. And then they're like, oh, well, that wasn't Selena Kyle, which I don't even know if that's true. And I don't care to find out, to be quite honest, if it involves watching 2004's Catwoman. But, get over it. It's not a character defined by their skin colour. But my reason I'm not particularly for or against is, I've seen Zoe Kravitz in movies, but I haven't seen her, anything where she's putting in, a massive performance. Normally I see her as part of ensembles, which, again, I guess this is an ensemble movie, so that's not really a complaint. I've seen her, obviously, in First Class. She was in Mad Max Fury Road, so, she's not a bad choice. I think she looks the part great as well. She has that kind of physique that really suits an actress you would want for Catwoman, I think. And obviously they tested her against Pattinson, so that's the most important thing. That we'd heard they were looking for a person of colour for Catwoman, and apparently that's true, which I wonder if that means some of the other rumours we've heard are true. One of those rumours being that they were looking at Jeffrey Wright for Commissioner Gordon, which, he's a great actor. So, I don't know. We haven't seen if that one's true. But we have found out who was going to play the Riddler. Now, long talk and long rumours that it was going to be Jonah Hill. Apparently, obviously everyone assumed Jonah Hill was going to be playing the Penguin. Maybe he was offered the Penguin. Don't entirely know. But he gravitated towards the Riddler. And that's what he wanted. And he also apparently wanted $10 million. Which, Jonah Hill is not worth $10 million, okay? He's not. They were like, okay, we'll just get someone else. But they got Paul Dano as a Riddler, who is a fantastic actor. He sort of makes very interesting choices. This is probably his biggest role to date, but when you go through the list of roles he's done, makes such interesting choices as an actor, and he is fantastic. Just to rattle off a few, he was the kid in Little Miss Sunshine. Well, not the kid, the older brother, the pilot guy. In Little Miss Sunshine, he was in Prisoners, and he was in... God, I had another one in my head, and now it's gone. Oh, There Will Be Blood, of course. That was the one that kind of shot him to fame, I think, to a certain degree. He's a great actor. He's a great character actor, and I think that's what you want for the Riddler, and he's got a more... I think, do you know what? He's unassuming looking, and I think you want that for the Riddler. I think if you saw Jonah Hill as a Riddler, you'd be like, oh, it's Jonah Hill. It'd be hard for him to vanish into that role. Anyway, that is what we've got in Matt Reeves' Batman. Interesting that this is coming together. We're probably going to get more casting announcements before the year is out. I think this is starting to film early next year, but we shall see. A lot of TV news since we've been gone. Since you've been gone. A few TV series have died. A few TV series have been born. And I guess since we were talking about comic book movie news, we'll talk about some comic book TV shows. First of all, the Ghost Rider TV series with Gabriel Luna is dead. This was apparently going to go to Hulu. It was not even that long ago it was announced. So it's baffling. We'll factor into why that might be in a sec. Another Marvel TV show is dead. Cloak and Dagger. That ran for 2 seasons on Freeform. I think it was on Amazon Prime over here. I don't know anyone to watch it. But anyway. Now, what's weird as well is they announced the Ghost Rider TV series along with Hellstrom, and they were both going to Hulu, and they cancelled Ghost Rider, but their Hellstrom is continuing to go ahead. So who knows what's going on there. Of course, The Runaways is another show on Hulu in America that Marvel make. But yeah, those TV shows by Marvel are dying a death, presumably to make way for Disney+. The other thing is that Jeff Loeb, who is in charge of Marvel TV, is apparently gone by the end of the year. And Kevin Feige, forever, me and seemingly everyone that covers movie news has just been calling him head honcho, because he seemingly just does everything at Marvel, and we didn't know what his title was. But he's been made the chief creative officer of Marvel, which basically just sounds like they put him in that role so that when Jeff Loeb is gone, he can oversee more control between the TV and movie departments. Now, the Ghost Rider TV series dying, I find interesting, because Hellstrom, it's like whatever. They probably don't have any plans for those characters. Cloak and Dagger, another one I don't think that ever necessarily got much momentum. That they, again, are probably not going to use those characters. They're kind of pretty C-list characters overall. Ghost Rider is a pretty big character to burn. No pun intended. So I wonder if this means they have plans for him in the larger universe. Whether that involves casting, I don't know. As in, what I mean by that, are they going to get rid of Gabriel Luna? Now, what's handy is he's playing Robbie Reyes, I think his name is, Ghost Rider, and that's not the Ghost Rider we all associate with. Johnny Blaze is the main Ghost Rider. That's the one Nicolas Cage played in the awful movie from before. And Ghost Rider Johnny Blaze actually is in this universe. He was seen in an episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So he is possibly out there. But they might have plans for Ghost Rider. He would work in a kind of a Defenders kind of scenario, but of course they'd have to change Defenders' name. There have been a couple of rumours going around as well that and again, I would not necessarily trust these, but I'll just say them for the sake of, completeness. That's not a word. Or maybe it is a word, I don't know. Who cares? There was rumours that they wanted to bring a few characters back from the Netflix shows, but not all of them. They wanted to bring Daredevil back, they want to bring Jessica Jones back. And again, this doesn't necessarily mean the shows are revived, but in some context. And The Punisher, I think, was the other one. Which, yeah, I think if you're looking at those shows, those are the characters that make sense to come back. Charlie Cox is great as Daredevil, and it really doesn't matter who's kind of under that mask, to be honest. He's great as the role, and I mean, if you're bringing back the continuity of that show, I think having Vincent D'Onofrio as Kingpin is a big get. That makes it worth it. Jessica Jones, Kristen Ritter is great as that character. I don't think there's any need to recast her. And overall, that show was quite good. Even if it was, look, second season was boring. I didn't watch third season. The first season was outstanding, though. And I don't think you can really cast that character much better. And Kristen Ritter is a big enough name where you can get away with having her, I think. John Bernthal, is a very successful actor. Totally fits the Punisher. You would want to keep him. And that's not a disrespect to Luke Cage or Iron Fist, Mike Coulter or Finn Jones. They were fine, but I think if they had to pick, those would probably be the last two they would pick, unfortunately. Or fortunately, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see what they do with these characters in general now going forward, because the TV and movies are about to interconnect a lot more now that Feige is in that position. And there are characters there that I think they will consider using. So what they do is going to be very interesting to watch. We will see. Speaking of comic book TV shows, a lot of news on the DC front. There's a lot of goings on as far as television shows. First off, there's an Arrow spin-off, I guess is more of a, an Arrowverse spin-off, coming from the Canaries. Not like from the Canaries, the country. I mean, like the Black Canaries, of course. Which, okay, look, I stopped watching all these Arrow shows a couple of seasons ago, so I'm totally out of the loop here. So I'm going to read what it says, and I don't understand what's going on, to be honest. Last I saw, she was dead. The only Black Canary in the show, Katie Cassidy, was playing Laura Lance. Which, God, it was so stupid. I guess spoilers if you care. Where, like, at the start of the season, they showed someone in a grave and they didn't know who was in the grave when they started writing it. So they were just like, oh, we have to kill off this character. So now she's back, apparently. Arrow is in its final season. And they're going to do an episode that's a backdoor pilot, which is the same thing they did with The Flash. A backdoor pilot just means they're going to have an episode of, Arrow that would basically be the first episode of Canaries. It's going to star Catherine McNamara as Mia Smoke, Katie Cassidy as Laura Lance, and Juliana Harkavy as Dinah Drake. Again, I know one of them. The Canaries, I'm reading this now from in front of me. I know what the Canaries are, but I read this and I'm totally confused about what the hell has happened on this show. So the Canaries are a vigilante group operating in a future version of Star City, in which the city was overrun by an uprising by the denizens of the city section known as the Glades. Okay. So it's in the future, apparently. Cassidy, it says, killed off in season 4, began returning in season 6. The McNamara one joined last season, which is season 7. The other one has been in there since season 5. Okay. I'm totally out of the loop on the Arrowverse, but yeah. Canary spin-off in the works, apparently. Another show that's in the works is a Superman and Lois TV series. Now, I'll have to dig this out later, because I'm sure I heard this rumored before, but it's been confirmed now. Tyler Hoechlin, who was Superman, of course, on the Supergirl series, is taking up this role again, along with Elizabeth Tulloch. I'm reading this in front of me because I do not know. This is interesting for a couple of reasons. For a long, long time, apparently, they wanted a Superman TV show, and they weren't allowed to have it. And that's why they had Supergirl. Now, I was looking at the ratings for the CW shows beforehand because I'd heard some bad things. Supergirl's ratings are not good this season. They're under 1 million pretty consistently, which, just to put as frame of reference, everyone was saying that Legends of Tomorrow was in big trouble with its ratings. Supergirl is kind of in the same number at the moment, so I don't know what this means. Does this mean that Supergirl is not long for this world, that this is going to be her last season? Maybe they'll move her over to Superman and Lois. I don't know. That's the thing about the Arrowverse. They're coming up to a massive crossover, which I actually am quite excited for, as much as I'm totally out of the loop with all these shows. Crisis on Infinite Earths, because there's going to be all sorts of characters. I've heard, they're bringing back people from Smallville. They're bringing back people from that crap Birds of Prey show, apparently. They're bringing in, apparently, the Titans. So I don't know. I don't know what this means for Supergirl. But the other thing is, of course, much as Arrow very much minds a lot of the characters for Batman, I think Supergirl took a lot of characters from Superman. So I don't know, is there going to be a repeat, or are characters that are going to reappear? I know they have John Cryer as Lex Luthor in that timeline. It's all up in the air, it seems, as far as the Arrowverse goes. So I don't entirely know. It looks like they're kind of cycling out some of the older shows, bringing in a few new ones. Interesting to see. And there is some more DC shows, which we will talk about in a sec when we talk about HBO Max, because a lot of interesting stuff coming to HBO Max, and we're going to run through the whole list in a sec. But as far as other TV news, there was a trailer for the new season of Rick and Morty. I don't really have much to say about the actual trailer, but the big revelation here was that we're only getting half the season when it comes back November 10th. We're only getting 5 episodes, and I've heard a few people really confused about this, angry about this, concerned what's going on, how long I'll wait. We don't know for sure, but right, if you look at the air dates for the episode, the 5th episode, which will be the end of this first half, comes December 8th. It's not unusual for shows to take a break in December, take a break for most of January, and then return. I think they even did it for the first season of Rick and Morty. So I don't think it's a big deal. I don't think it's going to be a massive break by any means. I think they're just breaking up the seasons. It was weird to be like part 1, part 2. I don't know why they did that. Maybe just because they thought there would be backlash, or in case people thought, hey, what the hell? We only got 5 episodes after like a 2-year hiatus or whatever. But regardless, that's, that is what it is. 5 episodes. It's not unusual. Adult Swim generally has really weird scheduling for their shows. Sometimes it's just massive breaks for no real reason. Venture Brothers is a show that constantly got screwed over date-wise. I think the problem is that Rick and Morty is such a breakout show and so popular that they don't know how to deal with it, maybe. I don't know. Maybe this is just the only way they could get the episode out is by having a big break, but I can't imagine it's going to be a massive break. I don't think there will be as big a break as there was between this season and the last season. I don't think there will ever be a big break again, to be honest. They put out another trailer as well, which took the piss out of Stranger Things, which Stranger Things also got a trailer. I'm not even going to cover it. It's the same lame trailer they put out every year now that there's a new season announced. It's just like Stranger Things, and then, there's a number in the background. Oh! And then they go through some episode names, and they did a piss take of that. I don't know if these are real episodes, to be honest. I assume they are, but they sound like they're taking the piss. They're so obnoxious, but I'll go through them anyway. So, first episode, Edge of Tomorty, Rick Die Rick Pete. Episode 2, The Old Man in the Seat. Episode 3, One Crew Over the Crew Coos Morty. 4, Claw and Hoarder, Special Ricktims Morty. And 5, Rattlestar Rick Lactica. God, they're just really obnoxiously titled, aren't they? But then again, I don't know. I feel like you could probably get a few more subtle titles there, but maybe the titles were never that subtle, I guess, but who cares? So yeah, Rick and Morty had a trailer. Not much to say on it, really, aside from the revelation that there's going to be a big gap between the first half and the second half. We just don't know how long it's going to be yet. Another TV show. This actually is a weird one, because it's a show that got cancelled, and then a show that got brought back in a way. So the Game of Thrones spin-off that we were hearing about, I think it was called The Long Night, which was apparently going to be a lot about the White Walkers. It was starring Naomi Watts. Had a S.J. Clarkson directing the pilot. Filmed in Northern Ireland. There was apparently issues behind the scenes. Regardless, it's dead now. It's not happening. Now, I think there's a few reasons for that. First of all, I don't know how you make a series about the White Walkers now that we know they just get killed off really quickly, or that the Night King is just, hey, if he gets stabbed once, it's over. It just wouldn't be very interesting. It's dead. Can't say I'm all that surprised. There's been a lot of Game of Thrones spin-offs in the works. I don't know how many are still in active development, but one that is definitely happening, in that it's gotten a series order, which means we're definitely getting at least the first season of 10 episodes, is House of the Dragon. Apparently set 300 years before the modern time, focusing on House Targaryen. And I think George R. R. Martin is actually involved in this heavily. In which case, dude, finish the book. For God's sake, come on. Anyway. Yeah, he's involved in this. He generally goes into a lot of detail about House Targaryen, more so than a lot of the houses. So I think this makes sense. And hopefully it'll be different enough to distinguish it from, of course, the series we just finished. But we're getting a whole first season of it anyway. So, I don't know. There could be other Game of Thrones spin-offs. We'll have to see. But that's all we know at the moment. House of the Dragon. Not a great title in my opinion. Just very generic. Maybe it'll change. Anyway. Another TV thing I want to cover very, very quickly. I was actually going to do this separately, but I'll get it out of the way here. Kurt Sutter, who is the creator of Sons of Anarchy, is involved, of course, in the spin-off to that, Mayans MC, has been fired. He's gone from FX. He still has a development deal with 20th Century Fox. A lot of controversy about this. Very, very strange altogether. I would say, first of all, Kurt Sutter, I liked Sons of Anarchy. I was never high art, to be honest. It was Hamlet with motorcycles, and then it became obnoxious to the point where it just felt like they thought the show was much better than it was. Kurt Sutter's never been a man for subtlety, which I think was evident in the show. And he's often come off as just a brash man, to be honest. I'm not going to say anything here, because I've never heard any confirmation of this. There is stories about the set of Sons of Anarchy, rumours, and I would say not necessarily from a viable source, but that the sets there were very chaotic, and it wouldn't have been surprising if there was a Me Too scandal on set. That's all I'm going to say. But his conduct has never really been befitting apparently, of someone in the entertainment industry, which in some ways, of course, is very refreshing to have someone that's no bullshit, very honest. But it's apparently created a problem for Mayans MC. Now, for some reason, he put out a very weird statement. I was going to cover it at one stage, where he said like he was going to step away after season 2. He said something like, "Oh, it's time for the white man to go," which I guess what he was saying, like the show is about like a Hispanic biker club. He wants more Hispanic voices involved. I don't know, but at the same time, he was obviously up to something so bad that they fired him. Now, other people are saying, "Oh well, this is of course because of Disney." He's banging that drum, saying, "Oh, it's Disney, and this is the corporate mouse, keeping me down." I don't know, dude. You reap what you sow. I don't know what sort of conduct he had on set. He seemed to acknowledge it, but then he's also kind of backtracking. So I feel that's a bit, give us your side of it or don't. You can't play it both ways. But regardless, he's out at FX. I don't know what this means for Mayans. It's currently airing its second season. I haven't watched it. It hasn't been renewed or cancelled yet. Kurt Sutter still has a deal. I don't know. I'm guessing, especially after speaking so much against Disney, whether or not he'll have much in the works. But he was also very shitty, I understand. He had that show, The Bastard Executioner, which, he got cancelled and he was very pissy about. So I don't know. He didn't come off as like a nice guy, so it's hard to root for him, Regardless, he's out at FX. We were talking about superhero TV shows. Now we're going to talk about HBO Max, which has massive stuff going on, including some superhero TV shows, which we'll get to in a sec. Let's talk about, first of all, what was revealed. It's going to cost $14.99 to get this service. Now, I'm really not sure what to do with this as far as reporting on HBO Max. For a few reasons. Disney Plus, at least, is going to launch here, right? And a lot of the other streaming services are also going to launch over here. And if nothing else, it can, we're in a state of pop culture now where you really can have access to anything regardless of what region it's from or where it's restricted to. Because there are so many streaming services going to be creating content that it'll probably come out somewhere in your region. But it doesn't appear that HBO Max is going to launch internationally. There's certainly been no mention of it from what I can see, which is strange. I think it makes sense. Some countries have HBO. Other countries do not. Ireland and England do not. They have Sky. They have Now TV, which I don't think is going to become like their version of HBO Max. Whether or not it's going to launch over here, I don't know. But I also don't exactly know what the licensing behind it is going to mean. So I don't know. We might not get anything from this. But we'll go through it anyway, because I'm sure some of this will appear in some form across to our shores. $14.99 a month is what we're looking at, which is important because apparently it's the same price as HBO Now in America. And if you have HBO or HBO Now, and if you're subscribed to AT&T TV, mobile and broadband bundles, it'll be no extra charge. That's just something I'm reading. I don't know what that means. HBO Max is coming in May 2020. Just to go through their original shows first. Oh God, I hate having so much news. There's something I really want to talk about on a show on Apple TV. Let's see if I can make some time for Apple TV after this. Americana. This is based on the book by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. Very much acclaimed book. Lupita Nyong'o is going to star and executive produce. Danny Gurira is going to write the pilot and serve as a showrunner. That sounds like it's going to be a great show. Very excited to see where that goes. The Boondocks. This is of course the animated Adult Swim show. The revival of that is going to also be there. Circe, which is written by Rick Jaffa and Amanda Silver and executive produced. It's the story of a banished nymph in Greek mythology who tried to seduce Odysseus, tracing her journey from an awkward nymph to a formidable witch, able to challenge gods, titans, and monsters alike. I get the feeling that one's not going to make it. I'm sorry. College Girls from Mindy Kaling, who will create and serve as a showrunner. The single camera comedy following three high school... No, Jesus Christ, I can't read today. Single camera comedy following three 18-year-old freshman roommates at Evermore College in Vermont. A bundle of contradictions and hormones. These sexually active college girls are equal parts lovable and infuriating. That sounds like something I'm not going to watch, but sounds like it'll be fine. DC Superhero High. Elizabeth Banks is going to produce this one. It's a friendly series about your favourite DC superheroes as they attend high school. Didn't they try to do this already? I'm almost completely confident there was a show about this already. I think it might have been Gotham High though. DC really love to. They really do that with everything, right? They latch onto an idea a long time ago and then try to bring it back in another form. Like they were trying to make Death of Superman forever. Then Batman v Superman happened. They were trying to put Batman v Superman together forever, and of course that eventually happened. They really hold on to ideas and then bring them back somehow. I don't know. DMZ, this is based on a graphic novel, a very good graphic novel. Probably quite timely as well. It's going to be directed by Ava DuVernay, and it's going to be written by one of the writers of Westworld, who serves as a showrunner, which is pretty great. What's it about? I'm reading this from Slash for them, by the way. Shout out to them. Based on a comic, DMZ is set in the future. The US government fails to take domestic threats seriously, resulting in Middle America residents violently rising up and pushing his way towards the edges of the country until they reach Manhattan, which becomes the country's DMZ. The comic focuses on Matty Roth, an aspiring photojournalist telling stories from the DMZ. But when things go wrong and he loses his way off the island, he has to choose whether to try and escape or stick around and document the chaos happening in the war zone. It's very, very good. I've read the first few issues of the comic. Really good, well worth reading. J.J. Abrams, who I think actually recently signed a massive deal with Warner Brothers, is involved in a show called Drama Queen. It's based on the childhood of TV lines Michael Oziello. Oh, I did not. Yeah, he's pretty well known as far as writing TV news. Set in the 1980s, centers on a closeted TV-obsessed teenager who copes with the harsh realities and relative mundaneness of life in small town New Jersey by escaping to an alternating soap opera universe of his own creation. That sounds insane. Doesn't sound good. Sounds insane. Dune, the Sisterhood, this is a spin-off to the movie. Denis Villeneuve is involved in that as well. The Flight Attendant, this is Kaylee Cuoco is going to executive produce this one, along with Greg Berlanti, who's got like 20 shows on different networks. Terrifying story of how an entire life can change in one night. Cassie, a flight attendant, wakes up in the wrong hotel in the wrong bed with a dead man and no idea what happened. Oh, actually, I was kind of like, oh, whatever. And then that last thing, dead man in the bed. Sounds interesting. Generation, this comes from Daniel Barnes, writing and directing, who made Cake, apparently. I don't care, I'm moving on from that one, not reading that one out. Genlock, this is I think this is like a reboot? I don't know. Has Michael B. Jordan, Macy Williams, Dakota Fanning, all doing voices, and David Tennant. Set in a dystopian future where an international coalition, known as the Polity, fights a hostile, autocratic invading force known as the Union. The show follows the Genlock program and its members who participate in the development and testing of an experimental technology which allows for individuals with unique mental makeups to have their minds uploaded to giant suits of mecha armor. Huh. Oh, okay, this is already going. The second season of this animated series will debut on HBO Max before eventually becoming available on Rooster Teeth's digital platform. Oh, there you go. They're doing a sequel series to Gossip Girl. They don't think they've said who's back with it yet, except for the original series writers there. They're doing some sort of Grease series, Grease Riddell High. There's an animated Gremlin series called Gremlin Sequel to the Mogwai. There's a Hanna-Barbera cartoon coming called Jellystone. Little Ellen, which is a 2D animated children's show about Ellen DeGeneres. No thanks. Looney Tunes cartoons, a new version of Looney Tunes, great. Love Life, Paul Feig is involved in this one. 10 half-hour episodes will be about the journey from first love to last love. And how people we're with along the way make us who we are, and we finally on with someone forever. That doesn't sound unique. Made for Love follows a woman looking to escape a restrictive tech-enforced marriage by moving in with her father in a remote trailer park. Right. It's going to star Mackenzie Davis and Himesh Patel. Raised by Wolves, something that Ridley Scott is involved with. Centers on two androids tasked with raising human children on a mysterious virgin planet. Right, alright. There's a series coming called Rap Shit. Produced by Issa Rae. I look at the music scene in Miami, told through the eyes of three young women, a hip-hop duo and their hustler manager. That sounds grand. Rules of Magic. This is coming from the creator of Jessica Jones. It's a prequel to the 1998 movie Practical Magic. Search Party. This already was airing on TBS. The third and fourth season, is coming to HBO Max. Sesame Street and a load of spin-offs are coming. We'd heard that already. Shelley's Station, or Shelley's Society. Gothic teen horror romance, grand. Station 11, I believe this is based on a really successful book that I have somewhere and have not read. Tokyo Vice, Michael Mann series, which is pretty cool. Tuned Out with Robert Zemeckis. I think I saw a quick clip of this, which looked pretty cool. An inspired new series from visionary director in the vein of Bob's classic Who Framed Roger Rabbit called Tuned Out, which merges animation and live action with the cast of Looney Tunes characters. That's pretty cool. There's also a lot of reality shows and docuseries. 15 Minutes of Shame, a doc centered on public shaming in the modern era. Fair enough. Birth, Wedding, Funeral. Each episode of the series will immerse viewers in different countries to reveal their cultures, presumably of their births, their weddings, and their funerals. Brad and Gary Go To. Celebrity stylist and TV personality Brad Gorski and Family Guy writer Gary Giannetti This 6-episode series follows the Hollywood power couple as they go on a jet-setting culinary adventure around the globe inspired by their Instagram stories. Okay, that's apparently something that's a thing that's gone completely over my head. Conan O'Brien comedy specials. Apparently Team Coco are going to produce 5 comedy specials. O'Brien will host 2 of them. Just sounds like a stand-up showcase, to be honest. Another Ellen DeGeneres TV show, this time to do with craft. Finding Einstein, another Ellen DeGeneres TV show. They're really, oh my god. Another Ellen DeGeneres. That's 4. Jesus Christ. Okay, so there's the animated 2D Ellen. There's a home design challenge. I swear, I wasn't doing a bit here. These just happen to be so close to each other. Finding Einstein, about her. Finding Einstein is an inspired docuseries blessed by the Einstein estate that will seek out, celebrate, and support a fresh generation of Einsteins. Okay, she's just producing some of these. I'm guessing she's not going to be in all of these. First Dates Hotel. Okay, fine, whatever. Generation Hustle, Heaven's Gate. This is a 4-part HBO series that explores the infamous religious movement. That sounds interesting. You know, like the thing is, HBO have done a lot of great documentaries, so I'm assuming some of them will end up there, and they'll also, you know, basically go on to, you know, make some original content for it. Maybe some 30 for 30s and that kind of thing as well. Max Original Movies, Anthony Bourdain documentary. This is about Anthony Bourdain, not something he was involved in before he died. Expecting Amy, which is a Amy Schumer thing. These are movies, by the way, in case I didn't say it. Bobby Sue, a comedy feature starring Golden Globe winner Gina Rodriguez as a brilliant young lawyer. Grand. Let Them All Talk. What? Oh my god! For a second, I thought this was going to be a sequel to like Look Who's Talking, and I saw Steven Soderbergh, and I was like, what the fuck? The film tells the story of a celebrated author played by Meryl Streep, who takes a journey with some old friends played by Candice Bergen, and Diane West to have some fun and heal old wounds. Her nephew, Lucas Hedges, comes along to wrangle the ladies and finds himself involved with a young literary agent, Gemma Chan. Grant, whatever. The Scoop, Persona, those are 2 other things. Superintelligence, which is this was going to be a theatrical release of Miss McCarthy. And then I think they just said, hey, let's just put it on the streaming service. And a series called Unpregnant. Yeah, fine, whatever. Along with all that original stuff, some of it was very hit or miss. Sorry for putting you through that. It's going to have a lot of back catalogue, including Studio Ghibli movies, The West Wing, Doctor Who. They're going to have 4 new specials of Adventure Time. They're going to have Friends, of course. Rick and Morty is going to exclusively stream there. That's just something I hinted at earlier. It's going to have every season of South Park. Apparently that cost them $500 million to get the rights to. As far as superhero stuff, I found this very interesting. Greg Berlanti, who I said makes every freaking show ever, he's already, by the way, got a record-breaking amount of TV shows on the air. And growing this, let's see, actually in the news report here it says, growing the super producer's scripted record to 21 total shows. Okay, Jesus Christ. So there's going to be a DC anthology series called Strange Adventures. Not a lot of information about that one. It's the hour-long drama will explore close-ended morality tales about the intersecting lives of mortals and superhumans. I don't know if that's going to be a starters or it's going to be animated or what. But the more interesting one everyone's talking about is Green Lantern. Now, I think there's something very interesting about the way they're phrasing this, okay? Everywhere I've seen them talk about this, they're saying very, very heavily inspired by Green Lantern, a new take on Green Lantern. I don't know what that means, but I think they're using very deliberate wording there. They also did not say an official title of this one, they just showed the Green Lantern logo. So this might not be what we're expecting it to be, which is a Green Lantern TV show. I don't entirely know what it could be, but I'm just putting a warning out there now. What does it say? They're going to have really high budgets, so apparently. So that's good. These need big budgets. Obviously, Disney Plus are having a really high budget as well. I will say, the HBO Max streaming service sounds like a bit of a winner, to be honest. It sounds really good. Might even be better than Disney's one. But we shall see. Speaking of Disney, Star Wars. We have a hell of a lot of Star Wars news that came out over the last few weeks. A few of them are trailers. One of them is pretty minor, and the other one is another cancellation of a big property. Kevin Feige, as we mentioned, a very busy man. What I find interesting is that he's going to be a producer on a Star Wars movie, and the reason I say I find that interesting is because he was for a long time rumoured to be taking over when he was done with Marvel at Lucasfilm. Now, I don't know that I don't think that's necessarily true. He's definitely not going far from Marvel for a while. But yeah, he's going to be producing a Star Wars movie, and pretty much every Marvel actor was like, "I want to be in it." So we'll see how that goes. David Benioff and D.B. Wise, who of course are the Game of Thrones duo. They recently made I think it's a $500 million deal with Netflix, and I think one or both of them were involved with Gemini Man, which was a shit movie. Hooray! And they're also involved with X-Men Origins Wolverine. Yay! They really got lucky with Game of Thrones, to be honest. There's, by the way, there's an interview with those guys about Game of Thrones, and they mentioned how they reduced the fantasy elements to appeal to football players and moms. Fuck, it's astounding to a certain degree that they were involved in this show. And I know, they did what they did. It was a great show for a while. Star Wars trailers, okay. Actually, geez, I just mentioned their names, went on a rant, I forgot what the news was. I'll go back to the trailers in a sec. Benioff and Wise were working on a trilogy for Disney, and a lot of people pointed to this as the reason Game of Thrones was being rushed. And now the trilogy is cancelled, which is fairly interesting. I don't know why. They were apparently working on this for the last year. I don't know what they had involved. They said it was for scheduling. Maybe it was. Maybe Disney balked at their involvement with Netflix. Maybe they weren't happy with the reception of Game of Thrones. I don't know. But it's dead, seemingly. There was a lot of talk that it was going to be a kind of Knights of the Old Republic thing. Who knows? Star Wars movies, man, are very close to dying a death. Which might not be a bad thing, considering the brand is a little bit tainted right now. But we had that trilogy. We have Rian Johnson's trilogy. He himself has kind of said he's not sure what's going on with that. Who knows if that will come out? I think if they announced that before The Last Jedi, if they had held that off, I don't think they'd have mentioned it. I don't think they'd give him a trilogy after the reception of The Last Jedi. And I actually like The Last Jedi personally. But anyway. And yeah. So those two, that's gone. We don't know what's going on with Rian Johnson's trilogy. The Obi-Wan spin-off is obviously now a TV series. They confirmed that was going to be a movie. I don't entirely know what's going on with the movies. The Feige one is the one that we've heard about recently. It seems to be that and the Rian Johnson trilogy, and we don't know how soon we're going to get it. I think there was a rumor going on we might not get another Star Wars movie till 2022. I don't know. Interesting. I feel like they've overreached, but they're doing a lot of TV series for Disney Plus, which, that's fine. Those look good. I'll take those over the movies, because honestly, bringing us to trailers, I tried to jump the gun a minute ago. We had a trailer for The Mandalorian, which is soon to be one of the most pirated shows of 2019. And don't write in. I know it's going to be Game of Thrones finale is going to be the most pirated. I know it will be. I can tell you that already. Yeah. Because of course it's going on Disney Plus, and it'll be finished before Disney Plus is even launched in a lot of territories. Apparently the first episode has a massive Star Wars spoiler, so if you want to watch the show, it will be spoiled for you. So if you want to watch it, you're going to have to watch it legally, I guess, unfortunately. God damn, The Mandalorian looks so good. Genuinely, as someone who kind of gets burnt out in Star Wars easily, who isn't as excited about Star Wars as most people, this is the Star Wars thing I'm excited for. That we're getting new characters, new environments. A story that isn't just about Skywalkers and that stuff and fan service. It looks so damn good. And of course, we have... I gotta do my impression again. That's right. Renowned German director Werner Herzog narrates the trailer again. So here we go. Are you ready? Often asked, often imitated, never duplicated. My impression of Werner Herzog. Bounty hunting is a dangerous profession. Thank you. He's in this trailer again. We actually get a look at him along with strange actors. This has got a very diverse and interesting cast. Cara Weathers is in it. Gina Carano is in it. Bill Burr is in it for some reason. You can look up clips of Bill Burr saying he doesn't like or care about Star Wars. Go ahead. But it looks so good. It looks like it has a bit of grit. It's a bit dark. The budget for it looks insane. A load of different amazing talent involved with it. I cannot wait for this. It's coming out November 12th, I believe. Yeah, not much else to say of it. It's a great trailer. Actually, everything they've shown us about this trailer has been great. And early reviews for it, which again, I'm always very dubious of early reviews, have been very, very positive. So hopefully, it'll be good. is all I can say. We also got a trailer for Star Wars Rise of the Skywalker. Or The Rise of Skywalker? The Rise of Skywalker, I think. Right. It's fine. Thank you. Yeah, no, I don't know about this, to be honest. This new trilogy is very interesting because they gave us something totally familiar for Force Awakens and everyone lapped it up. And they tried to give us something new, and maybe they overreached and people balked at it. I don't think we're going to get any originality in the Star Wars film as a result. It certainly doesn't seem like that. We get a few interesting things in the trailer. We get our first look at Kerry Russell's character. She's kind of wearing a helmet and purple. Is there anything else to talk about in this trailer? There's a part where Rey and Kylo Ren are destroying a podium, which looks like they're destroying the podium that had Darth Vader's helmet on it. So maybe returning to that idea of them forming something new outside of Jedi and Sith. I don't know. But seemingly, I guess more importantly, they're working together there. We got C-3PO seemingly saying goodbye to his friends. I believe, if I had to guess, they're going to do something with his memory there. I think I saw a pic where Kerry Russell's character was holding something that looked like a memory of C-3PO, and I think that there was a shot where the back of his head is open, and he's saying goodbye to his friend, so maybe they're going to do something with him, reset him, take out his memory, and that could lead to one of the shots in the first trailer where his eyes are red. Maybe he malfunctions because he doesn't remember who they are, because they messed with his memory. I don't know. That's just a guess. The shot everyone's talking about is at the end of the trailer, of course, involving the Emperor, because no one's ever really gone, ooh. It's not a clear shot of the Emperor. We know he's in this. Kylo Ren, and it's Rey in front of him. I swear to Christ. Kylo Ren is just going to pick that old man out of the chair and throw him down the shaft, isn't he? It's going to happen, right? It's going to be the same thing. It'll be on the second Death Star, what Death Star is it? It's the second Death Star, but it's the 8th time there's been a Death Star in a Star Wars movie. He's in the ruin of the second Death Star. He's going to throw him down a shaft, isn't he? I don't know. I will say this as well. I haven't read anything. I don't want to read anything. Star Wars leaks, they are out there. And from what I've heard, this trailer seemingly confirms they're true. So if you want to ruin it for yourself, they're out there. The leaks are out there. I didn't read the leaks, but I was talking or seeing what someone said about the leaks. And they said they were pretty bad. We try to be positive. I know the cinema near me is sold out. I don't know. That's positive. And they also did this really annoying thing that I'm so sick of seeing this because it now means nothing. Where they're like, oh, this movie is having the best ticket sales of all time, and outsold this one here, right? Guess what else outsold and broke the record at the time? Solo: A Star Wars Story. How did that do? Plenty of movies have amazing pre-sale tickets. Stop putting it up as something amazing, okay? Anyway, going from Star Wars to Marvel, this was big news, but it's kind of blown over now because I think we kind of all expected it to happen, and it happened quite a while ago now, and that is that Spider-Man is officially back in the MCU. Woo! Fine. Great. Everyone is celebrating this. I'm happy he's back, of course. I did a whole episode that went on for a long time about talking about the ramifications, what could happen, what I think will happen, and how basically both sides would move on. The reason I'm not ecstatic is because I think if you read what was said, it sounds very much like it's like Spider-Man is back in the MCU, bang, 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 until we can get rid of him. It sounds like, it sounds like it wasn't a case of. They were all like, Tom Holland did great work, bringing this back to the table, and Sony put out a statement just today saying something along the lines of, "Hey, we saw the fan response." I don't believe that for a sec. I think what's going to happen, apparently this deal is one more movie, one more Spider-Man movie set in the MCU, and then another MCU appearance. I think it's very likely they're going to wrap up this Spider-Man trilogy and get him out of this universe in the subsequent appearance. I just think they don't want to be left holding the bag like they would have been had this deal not happened. Yeah, so I think this is a kind of a case of Spider-Man is in the MCU for now. And look, we'll see. A lot can happen. from now until then. I believe they arrived at 30%. I think that was the figure. I don't have it written down in front of me. As I said, normally I have much more well-researched news. Sorry if the show is a bit more free-flow. But there is so much news to get through that I don't have notes for everything, because if I did have notes for everything, I would be here for 4 hours just doing the news. I believe it was 30%. I think, they've basically said that Spider-Man is going to cross over with Venom. Whether or not that happens post or pre-involvement in the MCU, we don't know. This seems like shaky ground. But they've put down their camp there, so we'll see how that goes. Speaking of really shaky ground, Blizzard. I'm not going to get into the whole Blizzard and China thing, because that's a massive story. I think I'm going to do a topic on the next episode, hopefully, about China and pop culture's involvement in China and why it's dodgy. Because there's been a lot of analysis of that recently. But apparently, at BlizzCon, which I believe is in November, first week of November, maybe the second week, they're going to announce Overwatch 2. There's been serious leaks about it, seemingly showing off the art. They've all been consistent. Overwatch 2 is coming. Not entirely surprising. I love that game. It's a very big game, very successful game. So Overwatch 2 is coming. With no more BlizzCon, I'm assuming. But yeah, you kind of expected it to happen. So, and it is happening. They announced the PS5 is coming. I did an episode on the PS5 a long time ago when the specs were rumored. I believe the specs are pretty much what was said, so I'm not going to cover that in any more detail. Not surprising, really. I mean, people were going mad, being like, "Oh, it's coming." Of course, it's coming. And we all knew when it was coming, which is holiday season next year. That's not surprising. We didn't get any news here, really. Backwards compatibility rise. I believe you can play PS4 games. Not that surprising again. That's fine. I'll wait until we get firmer details on it. Overall, it's not too. Again, we knew this was coming. In fact, I believe in Japan they've trademarked PS5, 6, 7, 8, 9 recently. So, come on. We knew this was coming. We'll wait until we get more details to talk about PS5. Games are more important, I suppose. I was going to talk about the PlayStation conference they had, but it was a total bummer. They showed off Last of Us 2 footage, and Last of Us 2 got delayed until May. So who cares? Doom was meant to come out this year as well. Doom got delayed until February, I think. Seems like all the good stuff is getting delayed. I don't even know is there any good games coming out for the rest of the year. Death Stranding, I guess. Stranding. Anyway, there we go. PS5. Well, I didn't expect to end on this news, but Jesus Christ. I have one bit of news. I tried to link my stories. I very lazily did this time. Sometimes the connections are a bit better. I did not think this was going to be the last news story, but I guess I planned this out poorly, because it's a story on Barney the dinosaur. Yeah, remember Barney? He loves you. You love him, apparently. Or so he says. We're getting a Barney the dinosaur film. And that's not the kicker. We all know that Barney was going to come back at some point. They were just going to wait long enough for nostalgia to kick in. It makes perfect sense to do it with a film. But who is involved with it? Our lead actor from Get Out and from Black Panther, Daniel Kaluuya, whose name I probably butchered there. Now, the reason I'm kind of pausing a bit here is because I want to get up the statement that was said about this, because it's hilarious. It's so over the top and ridiculous. So this is our last bit of news. Then we're going to do a minute-long meltdown and trailers. We have loads of trailers to talk about. I'll probably brush through them as well. Before we talk about Breaking Bad, that's our main topic this week. But Barney the Dinosaur movie is coming from Mattel. Mattel are making a serious push into films lately. I've talked about that. The episodes that they're making Barbie. I think they own Hot Wheels as well. But yeah, Daniel Kaluuya is producing this. I don't know why. I don't know how he got involved in it. But okay. Here's what he said. Barney was a ubiquitous figure in many of our childhoods. Then he disappears into the shadows, left misunderstood. We're excited to explore this compelling modern-day hero and see if his message of I love you, you love me can stand the test of time. Dude, why so serious? He's a giant purple dinosaur that loves people. Yeah, okay, that'll be fine. I'm sure, don't worry about it. You're not making Shakespeare here. He's not a hero that disappeared into the shadows. He's not fucking Batman. Specifics of the plot are yet to be revealed, but Mattel Films' Robbie Brenner has stated that the film will take some unexpected turns. Working with Daniel Kaluuya will enable us to take a completely new approach to Barney that will surprise audiences and subvert expectations. The project would speak to the nostalgia of the brand in a way that would resonate with adults while entertaining today's kids. They're going to turn him into an actual dinosaur. That's my prediction. He'll be an actual purple dinosaur. It's going to be Harry and the Hendersons with a purple dinosaur. You heard it here first. Exclusive. What a load of nonsense. I mean, I guess you have to be passionate about a film you're involved in. But, like, Barney the dinosaur. Guys, give it a break. Okay? Alright. Let's move on from the news that took on forever. When this comes onto a consistent schedule, the news won't take so long, hopefully. But there we go, half-assed news. Let's go on to the minute-long meltdown.
The minute-long meltdown is presented by Chernobyl. Not the disaster.
Not the disaster, I can't make that any clearer. The minute-long meltdown. This is one we need to talk about. Scorsese and Marvel movies. He's been on a tirade lately about Marvel films, calling them not cinema, they're amusement park rides, blah blah blah. Okay, let's get into this. Let me get a timer on my phone for a minute. It's been interesting to see the reaction to it, to say the least. Francis Ford Coppola has also joined in. So, yeah, it's interesting. But here we go. 1 minute on the clock. Scorsese and Marvel movies. Okay, first of all, Marty. I'm going to call you Marty, that's right. You don't get to decide what art is. Art is subjective. That's the point of it. You don't like them? Fine. Don't say that idea that's really dumb that everyone growing up is going to think, oh, this is real cinema. They won't. They will come back and look at real cinema. Much as the same way a lot of people are going back and looking at Goodfellas, a Casino. I didn't see it when it came out because I was a kid, but I've gone back and looked at it. You're clearly just pissed off at Marvel movies because they're big budget movies taking up space in theatres. Number one, big budget movies have been around for about 50 years now. Don't be so ridiculous. Second of all, don't voice a fucking fish in Shark Tale if you have an issue with big budget film. What you're clearly annoyed at is that theatres aren't showing The Irishman. And it's nothing to do with big budget movies. Hell, The Irishman has a budget that would put a lot of the Marvel movies to shame. It's because you're making it with Netflix. Okay, which a lot of other filmmakers came out and have issues with. Would you be pissed off? Like if Spielberg or one of the other directors came out and said, hey, yours isn't a movie because it's on Netflix. Don't be so fucking ridiculous. Right, as you can tell, with Minute Long Meltdown, I'm shooting from the hip. Sometimes I say things that are a bit worked up. And I'm still a bit worked up now, so fuck it, we're doing it again.
The Minute Long Meltdown.
No, cut the fucking music, we don't have time. A minute on the clock, let's go. Right, Marvel movie fans, stop being so fucking defensive. You're going after Martin Scorsese, acting like he's not a real filmmaker. He has been making consistently great movies for 40 years, at least. Okay? The guy is entitled to his opinion, the same way anyone is. You like movies? Great. You don't like the movies? Fine. Don't be so defensive, you own the culture now. Some of the highest grossing movies of all time are Marvel movies. Okay? You don't need to be so defensive. Number two, these aren't proper cinema compared to a lot of stuff. There is films that have greater depths and themes. I love Marvel movies, but let's not act like they are the most intellectual form of storytelling in cinema. Okay? There's a middle ground. Stop acting like Scorsese doesn't have a point. These are amazing popcorn films. Explore real cinema. But at the same time, you can like these movies and don't need to attack people that don't love them. Because there's a lot of people that don't like them. Jesus Christ. There goes a minute. Do you see what I'm trying to say? Both sides have merit. You don't have to pick a side. But look at things objectively. Like most situations, the truth lies somewhere in the middle. Okay? Martin Scorsese has a point. The Marvel movies aren't up there with the greats of cinema. No one expects it to be. They're not meant to be. He calls them amusement park rides. To a certain degree they are. They're meant to be massively entertaining. What's fantastic about them is that they're above that slightly. Okay, so he's wrong about that, in my opinion. And that's what this is all about. Opinion. Don't go after someone for having an opinion. That like, are we really shocked that a 70-year-old man doesn't like Marvel movies? Go ahead and ask your granddad what he thought of Endgame. Go ask your granny, is she pissed off that Spider-Man left the MCU? Or is she happy he's back? they probably don't have an opinion. And Marvel movies, as I said, is becoming a catch-all for cinema because it's literally at the top of pop culture right now. So you don't need to be so defensive to defend it. Okay? People have opinions. Some people like things. Some people don't like things. I didn't like The Joker. A lot of people love that movie. I love a lot of movies people hate. Okay? Just relax. You don't have to get so worked up. You don't have to attack Scorsese. You can just disagree with him. But let's not act like these films are going to be the most intellectual and focused form of narrative storytelling in cinema like some people have. Okay? The truth lies somewhere in the middle. I'm going to catch my breath. Are you listening to Christmas music? Of course. I'm trying to get in the mood for Phoenix Wrestling's A Very Phoenix Christmas. Isn't that show sold out? Yep, chances are if you're listening to this, it's already sold out. Huh, so you are making an ad to sell tickets when there's no tickets. Yep, pretty much. I'm going to be there. Will you? I guess not if tickets aren't available. This has been a pointless ad.
A Very Phoenix Christmas, coming December 14th. Probably already sold out.
This is the theme for trailer.
This is the theme for trailer trash. Get in the bin.
Get in the bin.
Well, I think that was pretty self-explanatory. That was the theme for Trailer Trash, where we talk about the trailers. I realised I never explained it the last episode. That was not meant to come out like that. I put it into a text-to-speech, and for some reason it just kept every one I tried, and the timing was all fucked up, and I was like, no, it's perfect. Now I have to keep it. But yeah, Trailer Trash. A lot of trailers came out, of course. We're going to run through a few of them here. There was a trailer for The Irishman. I'm not going to talk about that. I've actually seen The Irishman already, so there's no point talking about the trailer. I will put a review of it on YouTube at some point, hopefully, before it's released generally. I think a lot of people are probably going to wait for it to be on Netflix anyway. But it's really good. It's a very good movie. Quite long, obviously. But it is a very, very good film. I'll give my thoughts on that in a YouTube video at some point. Bloodshot. This is based on a Valiant comic starring Vin Diesel. I think originally it was going to be like a big Valiant universe. But I think they've sold off most of the other Valiant properties to Netflix, possibly. Or was that a rumour? Not too sure. Bloodshot. It looks pretty generic, to be honest. I can't say I'm familiar with the comic. He doesn't look like the character he looks like in the comic. So there's that. It looks like a Vin Diesel action movie. And yeah, that is an insult. Sorry, Vin Diesel. It's just kind of slow motion action. There's some cool effects. It looks a bit darker and grittier than I would expect. But overall, it looks fine. I can't remember when it's coming out. It looks like the sort of movie that would come out in January, though. And that's the biggest burial I can say of it. Birds of Prey, there was a trailer for that. I did a breakdown of it on YouTube, so I won't spend too long on the trailer. It's a good trailer. I like it. Some people are really dogging on this movie. I think it's quite good. As far as the trailer goes, personally. It's not like, it's not amazing. I think it definitely focuses too much on Harley Quinn. But overall, it's different. And I gotta give it that. It looks kind of a bit of fun. My hopes aren't too high for it, but it looks fine, I guess. We had a trailer for The Kingsman. This is the Kingsman prequel. It looks quite dark, to be honest. Very World War I heavy. I didn't like the last Kingsman film. I think I'm in the same camp as a lot of people with that movie. I thought it was just sort of fine. But this is different. The action in it looks good. Maybe a bit too much of that kind of slow motion ramp up. It looks, to me, I think this is going to be a trend in Hollywood. After Wonder Woman, I think we're going to get a lot of World War I set films. But this looks fun. We have Rhys Ifans, I think it was, as Rasputin. And we saw the sort of suit shop from the original Kingsman. It looks fine. It looks what I like about it, okay? I think the second Kingsman, my problem with it, and a lot of people's problem with it, was that it was so determined to just be the same thing again as the first one. And it suffered for it. This one looks different. So, perfect. What else do you need? Except to shake it up a bit, because the last one didn't do that at all. So, I quite enjoy this. I can't say it looks amazing. It looks kind of just like a big budget kind of action-y film, to be honest. But, with that Kingsman twist, it could be a bit of fun. I think we're probably going to get a lot of like steampunky kind of gadgets. I'm hoping it's not going to come out like Wild Wild West or some nonsense. But for what it was, fairly good. Then we had a trailer for Richard Jewell. This is Clint Eastwood's latest film, which seemingly, I mean, has been ridiculously quick coming together. So if you don't know the story of Richard Jewell, he was a security guard. I think it was at the Olympics maybe, or some sporting event anyway. And he was a security guard at it, a police officer, and he found a bomb. Yeah, it was at the Summer Olympics in Atlanta. He finds a bomb and tells the authorities and everyone to evacuate. And basically what happens is the authorities kind of turn on him and start suspecting him. This film, okay, is going to have its world premiere November 20th, and it's coming out in theaters in December. Let's see now if I can find the actual details. It was only announced as being in development in April of this year, and that was when he returned to direct. In May, the rights were acquired. It only began filming in June, and it's coming out in November, or its first showing is November, so insanely quick. But at the end of the day, I don't think it has many, things that hold it back. It's probably going to be a very dry talk, heavy drama. I thought this was a fantastic trailer. Just really well edited, really suspenseful. Clint Eastwood can be a bit hit or miss as a director, but this looks like a win. It's got a great cast. We have Paul Walter Hauser, who probably was a bit of a scene stealer in I, Tonya. Was it last year? I can't even remember. It might have been 2 years ago. Kathy Bates is in it. Olivia Wilde, John Hamm. Yeah, this looks like a winner. I would say just check out the trailer. I think it's a movie that people are going to be very interested come award season. Hopefully it's as good as the trailer, but again, we all know that we've seen plenty of good films have bad trailers and plenty of bad films have good trailers. Which brings us to Jungle Cruise. This is a baffling one for me. It's starring Emily Blunt and Dwayne Johnson, The Rock. That fulfills our wrestling quota for this podcast. Yeah, it's based on a Disney theme park ride. Quite an old one, quite a boring one if you ask most people. If you have to think back and say, oh, what was another boring theme park ride they made a ride out of, or a movie out of, was of course Pirates of the Caribbean. That's kind of what this looks like to me. It doesn't look like there's much story. It's kind of like, oh, you come on this cruise and it sure is dangerous, Emily Blunt. It just looked really... nah. Okay, the premise of this is set during the early 20th century. A riverboat captain named Frank takes a scientist and her brother on a mission into the jungle to find the Tree of Life, which is believed to possess healing powers. All the while, the trio must fight against dangerous wild animals and a competing German expedition. So it's sort of a mix of Pirates of the Caribbean and maybe a little bit of The Mummy, Indiana Jones. It was fine. I saw what they were going for with this trailer, which was kind of a charming, smarmy kind of adventure film. But it didn't do anything really for me. It was, I don't know. To me, maybe it's just because I could see through it. Didn't look like it had much great action in it. The Rock is kind of playing The Rock, of course. Emily Blunt's playing, English woman. I don't know. I'm not sure what to make of this. It just looks like a bland Disney kind of adventure movie, really. I don't know what I expected. Probably that. And I guess that's why I have no real interest judging off that. But I do have an interest, surprisingly, in the next Disney movie. And this is a Disney Pixar film. The next Disney Pixar film. I believe it's coming out in March. Onward. Starring Chris Pratt and Tom Holland. This is a strange one. Because I believe this is our second trailer for it. And the first trailer, I was like, ugh. Rolling my eyes at it, I thought it was not really any bit interesting. Because it seemed to basically take the premise of, oh, these are fantasy times, but we moved on. Now these fantasy creatures are in the real worlds, and it just looked like kind of a DreamWorks idea, really. But I kind of really like this trailer. It really has gone up in my estimation after seeing this trailer. We got a bit more of the plot, which is probably the main thing. And it seems like it's about these two brothers, obviously. Chris Pratt and Tom Holland are brothers. Chris Pratt is the older brother. And the plot of this seems to be like that they're trying to find a staff that would bring their father back for 24 hours. And I don't know, is this going to be the whole film? But they screw it up somehow. And they manage to bring back only his legs. And they have to find a way to bring back the rest of him. That's fine by me. You know? The father died when they were like really, really young. But I think that's pretty funny that they only bring back the legs. And it could add some good comedy and some interesting elements. Yeah, it looks a lot better than the first trailer would suggest. I can't say I'm entirely sold on it, but I got a few laughs out of it. It's a bit more of a creative idea, and I think there's like one of the things Pixar are great at is weaving in some emotion into these, kind of fun adventure films. So there's definitely going to be some emotion, I'm sure, with the dad who had died and the two brothers kind of coming together to try rescue him. Then we had, this is the talk of the internet. Or was, because I've been putting off a podcast for a while. Doolittle, starring Robert Downey Jr. Now, I talked about this on the last episode. I believe it was an episode called Here Comes Trouble. Because this movie is a fucking mess, if by all accounts. They apparently hired this director. I can't remember, but from the sounds of it, the director was completely over his head. Didn't really work very well with I wasn't really used to dealing with big CGI animals, and it was kind of like, oh, we'll sort it out in the day, which you can't really do with visual effects. So I think there are times in this trailer where it looks like people are kind of staring at space instead of looking at the animal, and it had to do extensive reshoots, 21 days of reshoots. They had bad test screenings. They had to bring in a new writer, another director to help. They've changed the name of it, and yeah, all of that is, I won't say it's evident, but it does not look like a good movie from this trailer. Here's the thing, right? It's like, obviously, especially people of my generation will know Dr. Dolittle as, that Eddie Murphy movie, ha ha ha. Dr. Dolittle has famously been a disaster to adapt. One of the films that helped kill the musical was the Dr. Dolittle movie, because they just had all these horrible instances of dealing with actual animals. Now you would think, with CGI animals it might be a bit easier, but apparently not. I also get the feeling, I feel like aren't we kind of past talking animals in movies? Like, talking CGI animals it's the novelty of that has worn off, right? I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. And look, everyone's going to say, Rocket. Rocket has more depth as a character. But have you ever, like, when was the last time you went to a movie, you're like, oh my god, look at this. Emma Thompson plays a macaw. Rami Malek is a talking gorilla. John Cena is a polar bear. Well done. Like, I'm looking at character descriptions. That's what the delay is. So, John Cena plays an upbeat polar bear. That fulfills our wrestling quota. Kumail Nanjiani is always bickering with him, and he's an ostrich. Ho. Like, it's just... Oh god, you can see this joke coming a mile away. Craig Robinson is Fleming as a mouse. Because guess what? He doesn't have a voice like a mouse at all. It's not good. The CGI is not good. The idea, this is not good. I don't know why you would make Dr. Dolittle again. And it got delayed, and it's now coming out in January. That should tell you all you need to know. This is not only going to be a bad movie, I think it's going to be pretty bad. Anyway, at best it'll be average. It's going to be a massive bomb, I think. It's got a massive budget to make this. I don't know who thought this was a good idea. It's baffling that they made it. And this trailer pretty much reflects that it's probably going to be bad. At least in my opinion. We'll see. Come January, which is generally a dumping ground for movies. The last trailer I want to talk about is one. I actually need to talk about this in general. I need to talk about the movie. And what I said on one of my first episodes. I said one of my first episodes, I mean the last episode. The first episode of the Phoenix Podcast, and that was what I meant to say. I did a minute-long meltdown. And I did it on, as I was just saying, the minute-long meltdown, I'm shouting, I'm saying things really angrily. Sometimes I'm literally going over the top for, the sake of the segment. And I was talking about the song from Charlie's Angels, Don't Call Me Angel. Now, I want to make this clear. I misworded something. That came out kind of wrong. I heard that it came out wrong, and I didn't want to edit it because it kind of really screwed up the whole segment. But I thought people would kind of take it as it was, and they really did, to be honest. But I was talking to a friend of mine who listened to it, said, "Oh, it was great." But I tried to say what I tried to say. Okay, let me say what I said. I was talking about the music video, and I was talking about the first trailer for Charlie's Angels. This was before I went into the rant, and I said, like, these are like strong independent. I said something along the lines of, "Oh, these are strong independent women. Oh, and they love fashion. Like, you're sending a mixed message." I said something along those lines. What I meant to say, I was talking about the first trailer, and I stand by this because I've seen the first trailer in cinemas now a couple of times. What I meant, and I this is basically something I said when the first trailer came out when I reviewed that on a past episode, was that I found it quite weird. Like, Charlie's Angels has, from what I can tell, seemingly always been like the male fantasy of the sexy spy. And it's been like that, especially in the rebooted films they did in the early 2000s. And it felt very weird that they went so far in the first trailer as going, these are hard spies, they aren't these sex pots that you might like, these are independent, strong women fighting for themselves, doing action. And then that it went into what we would consider to be stereotypical feminine norms of obsessing over fashion. There's one point where she does a kind of a L'Oreal hair flip. That's what I meant, but I came out wrong. That's all. The point I was making was basically that it was weird that they pushed so hard with one idea in the trailer and then kind of went back to an idea that it seemed they were trying to move away from. That's all I meant. So I misworded that originally. Please don't cancel me. I'm not well known enough or popular enough to be cancelled yet. At least, try and make me famous before you cancel me. Get me a lot of followers, get me really controversial, and then cancel me. That's how you do it, folks. Anyway, all of that is to say, we got another trailer for Charlie's Angels, and I actually really like this trailer. This is a better trailer. I didn't think the first one was awful, but it looks, people. I find I talked about this as well before. I find the reaction to the Charlie's Angels stuff, this movie, so strange, because you have any instance where there's a kind of strong female movie, it gets torn apart, normally by men on the internet, and oftentimes just like, oh, why do they have to be women? Oh, why they should not men? Oh, all that nonsense, right? But in this instance, seemingly to find a reason to fall back on, for that this movie sucks, because they need some logical, and I put that in quotations mark, reasons to tear apart in this movie that isn't, oh, they're women. And for some reason, it seems like they've fallen back on saying, how could they, how could they go after this and destroy the renowned and loved Charlie's Angels movie from the 2000s? It seems like people have put on their nostalgia glasses and just are saying now, oh yeah, these movies were great. These Charlie's Angels and Charlie's Angels Full Throttle. No, they weren't. Are you insane? Go back and watch those movies. They're at best popcorn fluff, at worst literally just marketed to teenage boys. Okay? That's ridiculous. People are kind of tearing into it for that reason, in my opinion, a little bit. But, personally at least, I thought this was a pretty fun trailer. The action doesn't look outstanding. It doesn't look bad, though. I think the chemistry between, the angels, the girls in this, are what's going to make or break it. And that looks quite fun. It looks like they are playing off each other quite well, judging off the trailer. From the look of it, it's going to be Naomi Scott is kind of brought into the fold as an angel, and the other two are kind of taking her under the wing and training her a bit. But it looks quite fun. Elizabeth Banks, I'd give her the benefit of the doubt that this is going to be decent, at least. If I had to tear into it again, I do find it frustrating and weird that the end of this trailer is once again like featuring the new single, Miley Cyrus, Ariana Grande. Damn it, I was going to just say Miley Cyrus and then put random noise because I couldn't remember everyone in the music video, and I remember two, and I forgot the last one, so now I feel bad to whoever I'm forgetting. Sorry. No, I'm not even going to waste time trying to remember it. But yeah, they do a big thing where they put a big spot of advertising the song, and it's like, all right, are you really trying to sell this movie on just one song? A song which I think is pretty awful. But again, I'm not the target demographic for. It's like you want us to see the movie, not buy the single. So just try make this a good movie and don't worry about the song. Just put this. Do you know what you do? Put the song in the trailer, and then just at the end of the trailer, say who did the song. We don't need glamour shots of the people singing this. It's ridiculous. I don't know. It's a bit odd, is all. I think maybe it's only odd because that's not like done anymore. You know, the kind of tie-in song with movies isn't as prominent as it used to be, especially with music videos. Lana Del Rey. There we go. Sorry I forgot you, Lana. I know you'd be annoyed. You've written many letters to me, you know, saying, can I get a shout out on the show? You were very pissed off about how we tore into the song last time, and now I've forgotten her name, so please continue to listen. Along with whoever's listening now. Well, anyway, that is Trailer Trash. Again, sorry that was a bit rushed, but there was a lot to get through. Not as much analysis. Normally it's a bit more talk about trailers, a bit more analysis, but you know, I say that. It's probably not true. That brings us to our main topic, though. I was talking about this for a while. I was meant to tie in with a Camino, but as you know, things got a bit delayed. One of the things I forgot to mention is, you know, I was delayed because I have a special guest at the end of the show if we have time for him, hopefully. Didn't have time for him the first episode, but it would be perfect if we got this out around Halloween. He's a very big fan of that. You know, he's a dead man. I won't say any more, but hopefully we'll have time for him at the end of the show. Trying to book him in took a bit of time, but we got him, folks. Yeah, we're going to talk about Breaking Bad. Second ever episode I talked about Sopranos in a segment called The Revolution Will Be Televised. And this is, I guess, the second installment of that, where I talk about a TV show and how it changed and how it's different. So this is The Revolution Will Be Televised, Breaking Bad.
The Pop Cult Pod with Tompott on the Phoenix Wrestling Network.
Just a quick mention before we get into our topic. There is, of course, spoilers fully for Breaking Bad, and a brief mention of The Sopranos and Game of Thrones, so be warned.
You're listening to the Pop Cult Pod, and this is a transition.
On the second ever podcast I did, I spoke about how influential The Sopranos was to television, popularizing the anti-hero in the golden age of television. It was revolutionary. And if Tony Soprano was the revolution, then in my mind, Walter White from Breaking Bad is the evolution. With other television shows, we had characters who began from a point of a weak moral compass, that would at times do the right thing, but not always for the right reasons. We often rooted for them regardless of that. Maybe we idolized their sense of self-preservation, or the glamorous, extravagant, immoral life they lived. Or maybe there's just nothing better than a good baddie. Walter White was a different breed of protagonist. We began with a sympathetic emphasis on the pathetic character and watched him turn into a monster. It wasn't as clear-cut as an anti-hero. It was the hero changing to a villain.
Growth, then decay, then transformation.
This is a story about a man who transformed himself from Mr. Chips into Scarface. That is how series creator Vince Gilligan describes Breaking Bad. Walter White begins the show as a pure and sympathetic man. A pregnant wife, a son with cerebral palsy, a teacher who has to take on a second job to get by. And then you drop cancer on him. He's basically a loser. A sad-looking mustache on his face, drab, boring clothing, and the proud owner of probably the saddest sex scene in television history in the pilot episode. And this was all intentional, to make White a man we felt pity for. He's a guy who could have had it all, but he sold his stake on a massive company that could have made him rich. And over the course of 62 episodes, Walt would go from the pushed upon everyman to a criminal drug lord with a high body count. He grew from the down on his luck man to make ends meet, and he decayed when greed and power got the better of him and transformed into something truly terrible. Growth, decay, and transformation was something Walt said about chemistry, but of course it could apply very much to the show. Jesse, for example, grew from being the small-time, relatively harmless drug dealer, decaying to the point of being an addict with his own violent intentions and actions, and then transforming into a man trying to survive and do some relative good for his part in Walt's rise to power. Essentially, him and Walt had changed places, from one being the sympathetic character trying to get by, and the other being the criminal drug leader. In fact, in the final season, with Walt's most villainous, Jesse even comes up with scientific solutions twice when Walt resorts to more violent measures, another way in which their roles are reversed. And Breaking Bad was always rampant with parallels and mirrors, with themes, trajectories, and imagery. In fact, the general trajectory for nearly everyone in Breaking Bad is just that. They break bad, going to a state of criminality at worst or being corrupted at best. See, cancer was not just Walt's diagnosis, it was also a suitable parallel for his effect on those around him. A cancer. You can follow that path of destruction back to Walt normally. Take Skylar, for example, often in my opinion, the unfairly despised wife of Walter White. The stress and lies Walt put on her first bring her to smoking, eventually into the arms of another man, and allows her to appear as the villain to others, including her son. And when Walt gives her little option of escaping from that life, she becomes complicit in his drug business. It's a long list and one of many characters negatively impacted by Walt's disappearance into his Heisenberg persona. Hank becomes a PTSD-stricken man, nearly crippled, who almost loses his job for acting in violence in response to Walt abusing his personal connection to him. Marie starts seething again in response. It's a complicated web that Walt often lies in the centre of. It's not only that reason though that things go wrong for everyone in Breaking Bad eventually, it's because Breaking Bad exists in a karmic universe. Actions have consequences, and sometimes those impact the larger world and the characters inhabiting it. In a larger sense, Walt indirectly causes the crash of two planes, which you could clearly see from his house, which got bombarded with wreckage, one of which was of course the Pink Bear. A reminder to Walt of his sins and deaths he's responsible for. Ironically, the bear's damages are consistent with the last shot we see of Gus Fring, with his half-charred face missing an eye. It was himself a potential outcome for Walt, and what could become for him in the end. On a smaller, more rhythmic level, Jesse killed Gale at his door, and eventually someone he loved will be shot on their doorstep. He goes seemingly without negative consequences for so long, and instead it passes on to those around him. But when he finally does come to face karmic justice, it all comes almost at once in the fantastic episode, Ozymandias.
Two vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them, on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that its sculptor well those passions red which yet survive, stamped on these lifeless things. The hand that mocked them and the heart that fed, and on the pedestal these words appear. My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away.
The duality of Walter White has always been a key component to the show. Walter White and Heisenberg were two sides of the same coin, as much as that might have been hard to believe. As the show went on more and more, the line between Walter White and Heisenberg blurred, until it got to the point where it was even unclear if the real Walt was even still there. And that duality, the domestic man and the drug lord, was always a factor. And in one episode, all those walls came crumbling down. His brother-in-law forced him to meet the dark side of Walt, and his actions, leading to his death. His son finally choosing his mother over his father, and fighting him off to protect her, and calling the police on him, kidnapping his daughter Holly, who at moments in the show is even dressed not unlike the pink teddy bear that represents the dark consequences of Walt's actions. It further illustrates the two worlds, the two sides of Walter White colliding. And as we heard earlier, the poem Ozymandias by Percival Shelley tells the story of Ozymandias, once great Egyptian pharaoh who proclaimed himself the King of Kings, and offered proof of his accomplishments with, "Look upon my works, ye mighty, and despair." The hubris, of course, being that despite the arrogance and said achievements, all that's left to tell the tale is a broken statue in an otherwise vast and empty desert. Much like the crumbling of the King Ramses II, Walt's empire, which he thought was so important, and what he hearkened for, crashes down around him. The money he made, gone. The people he tried to protect, alienated or dead. His legacy tarnished. Look upon my works, ye mighty, and despair. Nothing beside remains. Ozymandias in many ways is almost the finale of the show. Heisenberg is dead and Walter White is all that remains by the end of it. If even that. The final two episodes operate as something of an epilogue, especially in the final episode with Walt trying to do the right thing, albeit in some shady ways. It speaks very much to the Western aspects of the show, which are quite evident. A more obvious example being the black pork pie hat Walt wears for his Heisenberg persona. In westerns, the bad guy is often referred to as the Black Hat. The vast desert landscapes, a train robbery, and of course the use of El Paso in the finale, a song about a cowboy returning to a place that would endanger him for someone he cares for. You could also probably argue that it has elements of a Greek tragedy. Certainly the downfall of a once great character would indicate that. A flaw which for Walt will be for greed and power. And the end, which ends in a catastrophe and a high death toll, including seemingly Walt, would also factor into this. Although all things considered, Walt got left off pretty lightly, and it was as happy an ending as he could hope for. In fact, at one point the show even makes use of a Greek chorus, in one episode opening with a mariachi band telling the story of Heisenberg, with a few details that would seemingly break the fourth wall, like a Greek chorus often did. At times you could even argue for Breaking Bad to be considered a black comedy, easily comparing it to the Showtime series Weeds, which shared the same basic premise of a once normal person trying to support their family through the selling of drugs, but did so to a much more comedic effect. So genre-wise, Breaking Bad was a mixture of many aspects, but probably predominantly a neo-western. Hell, even a common complaint by some is that the slow pacing would also make you scream western, because it's a slow build that establishes the stakes and the personalities before an explosive and bloody ending. The show would have a chaotic and violent end, but it was the journey more than the destination with Breaking Bad. After all, Mr. Chips' Scarface was always a catchy tagline, but for it to truly succeed, we needed to buy into the slow moral decline of our lead character.
I am not in danger, Skyler. I am the danger. A guy opens his door and gets shot, and you think that of me? No. I am the one who knocks.
Other shows have struggled with the immorality of the character for different reasons. Most recently, fans were outraged at the quick and some would say undeserved villainous turn of Daenerys on Game of Thrones. Famously, on The Sopranos finale, David Chase admonished his audience for rooting for Tony, saying they had gleefully watched him rob, kill, pillage, lie and cheat. They had cheered him on. And while I can't necessarily say that he was cheered, the two reactions do raise a point we should be aware of when it comes to the bad guy character in television. First of all, the fall of the character doesn't really work without sufficient motivation or the arc that demonstrates it. Second, the audience should go through that change as well, going from rooting for our hero to hating him and hoping for his downfall. This was the challenge for the writers of Breaking Bad. How do you take a sympathetic character and turn him into a monster? How far could they take him, and when would the audience turn? His early signs of darkness began with some justification. He's being held hostage, so he uses his brain to produce a toxic explosion, justified by him being held against his will. He kills a man who otherwise would probably have stabbed him. He gets his hands dirty, but after all, that man held him hostage and may have stabbed him. Self-preservation. At what point did Walt become truly unjustifiable in his actions? What was the turning point? In my opinion, it wasn't an action, but an inaction. Towards the end of the second season, Jesse and Walt are having their differences, and part of this was down to Jesse finding a partner, Jane, and hoping to start a new life. They were addicts, and Walt comes to the house while they are both non-responsive after heroin, and he inadvertently knocks Jane onto her back and she begins to choke on her own vomit. Walt sees this, and all he had to do is put her on her back. And he does nothing. He stands there and watches her die. She wasn't a drug dealer, a criminal, or a threat to anything but his power, greed, and ascension to it. She dies because Walt chooses his own self-interest over her life. It would have a ripple effect in the show. It would haunt Jesse for quite a while, and consequently leads to the airplane collision. It was one of the first times where Walt's actions would lead to fatalities of people outside the drug trade, and he showed little to no remorse for it. Even in the episode of Ozymandias, Walt tells Jesse how he watched Jane die, just so he can twist the knife in him. He knows it's one of the most sickening things he's done, with little excuse for. In that moment, Heisenberg took over in a more domestic situation than ever before. Then again, we spoke about growth, then decay, then transformation. Was this the decay, or was it the transformation? Maybe I've been looking at this the wrong way. The growth and decay have always been apparent, even connected. The growth of his greed led to his decay of his moral compass, perhaps. Getting to the point of him abandoning his own principles. What was at first a man using his brains when other criminals used their lack of morals? Of course, eventually, he vied for criminal methods instead of the intellectual one. If we do look at this mantra of growth, then decay, then transformation, surely it comes in that order. So perhaps the transformation actually comes at the end, with the last good deeds of a once good man, and an attempt to save Walter White. The final season, or the extended 5th season, is interesting for a lot of reasons. First of all, in my opinion, it's probably the best season of the show. And even if all the other seasons are strong, this one is my favourite. When we discuss duality and the show as a whole, the final split season of 8 episodes apiece tells the tale quite well. The first 8 are Walt at his most conniving, dangerous and powerful, the drug kingpin, Heisenberg, culminating in his ruthless disposal of 9 prisoners who worked for a man that he'd also killed, even when he found out he didn't need to, in Mike. The final 8 episodes, then, are the Empire crumbling. From the very beginning, he starts to revert from Heisenberg back to Walter White. His cancer's come back. He's out of the meth business. In some ways, we are returning to the character we began with, but not in the same way. He doesn't make for the same sympathetic figure. He still does and has done some unspeakable acts. It's more a case that in this karmic universe, Walt is finally dealing with the consequences of his actions. The bitter irony being that after everything he did for his family, they hate him for what he did, and his family is broken. Him manipulating Jesse for so long leads to his brother-in-law being killed, which, in my mind, totally once and for all shatters the Heisenberg persona. As we see him cry in the sand for Hank's death, it's hard not to remember the lines of the Ozymandias poem. A shattered visage lies. Fitting that the last line reads, "The lone and level sand stretch far away." In the same spot that Walt first hoped to build his empire, it's shattered. The imagery is also reminiscent of the pilot, in the sense that we've come full circle. In one of the first scenes ever, we see Walt aiming a gun at what he thinks is the law coming for him. However, in this episode, Walt is sticking up for law enforcement and finds himself at the other end of a gun by the criminals he partnered with. It's also in this final season where Walt runs out of excuses or justifications for his actions, simply saying he did this for no one but himself, and that he liked doing it. Walt did grow and decay, but the transformation then is in fact into something a bit more complex. As I said, this isn't the Walter White we began with. It's something new entirely. A complex combination of both. Initially it appeared as if the Heisenberg persona was taking over the Walter White persona, but in the final season at times we see that in moments where he tries to be Heisenberg, the Walter White side makes its appearance. For example, when the season begins, Walt threatens Saul with, "We're done when I say we're done." However, by season's end, he tries it again, and instead is taken over by a cancerous cough. Or how Walt once stated that he was the danger, the one who knocks, when in the final season, Jesse breaks down his door, hoping to cause harm. It's only in the penultimate episode, Granite State, when he hears a reminder of who he was, and what he could have been, that the transformation occurs. He sits alone in a bar, and while waiting for the police to come pick him up, he sees Gretchen Schwartz, a woman he once loved and co-owner of the successful pharmaceutical company he helped found and has nothing to show for. And she's asked this.
Is Walter White still out there?
No, he's not.
You sound very sure.
I am. I can't speak to this Heisenberg that people refer to. But whatever he became, the sweet, kind, brilliant man that we once knew long ago, he's gone.
The transformation, then, wasn't from Walter White to Heisenberg. That was the decay. Instead, the transformation is Walter White looking for some form of redemption in using the horrible things he's learned to do the right thing. The transformation is him becoming a different Walter White. Fitting then that we hear the full Breaking Bad theme for the first time upon Walt's realization that he has to do the right thing again. We're back to where we began in a way, but as a much more complex protagonist. The put upon every man is gone, but the man who we rooted for to succeed is briefly there again, now as a mixture of both personas. It seems suitable that we also get the return of Grey Matter here, their name coming from a mixture of the White in Walter's name and the Schwartz playing off the German for black. White and black becoming grey, in the same way that the white and good, that was Walter, is mixed with the black and evil of the Heisenberg persona into something new. Using scientific methods to commit violence, albeit this time for good reasons, getting revenge for his brother-in-law and freeing Jesse, and trying to right some of his wrongs, even if it means doing what on paper is a bad thing morally. Murder. This new combination of both personas is seemingly confirmed by the writer of Granite State, Peter Gould, stated, "The way I see it is that Heisenberg is gone. He keeps trying to kind of evoke the ghost of Heisenberg, the thrill of feeling powerful, and it's not there. It's gone. It died when Hank died. It's just not there. What's happening is he's becoming something new. And it's not Walter White. It's not Heisenberg. It's something new. It's almost like a reminder of what Gilligan set out to show us about the television protagonist. An anti-hero didn't begin as one, but instead began on an arc of good to evil, ending as a combination of both. Vince Gilligan felt that TV was in stasis. Nothing ever changed. Walter White didn't fit the mold of the anti-hero initially, but by the end we're rooting for him, once more as the bad guy, doing good. And in this sense, our character didn't fit in with the usual TV protagonist of the anti-hero, but was instead about the formation of that character trope. So many characters on television begin as the anti-hero. Tony Soprano, Vic Mackey, Dexter Morgan, Jax Teller, Omar Little, Al Swearingen, among many more. And we rarely saw these characters before they became the bad guys, certainly compared to our starting point with Walter White. Walter White was a new breed of character that wasn't concerned with a morally ambiguous anti-hero, but instead showing the journey to becoming one. In a TV landscape overburdened with the anti-hero, Breaking Bad showed us the path of getting to one, implicitly. On his pitch for the show, Gilligan says, "One of the things that excited me the most was not even the good versus evil, but the idea of change in general, in terms of a television series. I thought, wouldn't it be cool if I could con someone into letting me make a TV show that is designed to be finite, so that you can really allow characters to change and to grow and to evolve. Or in the case of Walter White, to devolve and change from one thing at the beginning to something very different at the end. Growth, then decay, then transformation." So that is our segment on Breaking Bad. So I was gonna talk a bit about some of my favorite episodes, but again, this show was a little bit rushed compared to usual, trying to catch up with all the stuff. If I had to, I mean, obviously my favorite episode based on that topic was Ozymandias. I think it's one of the best episodes of television ever. I want to talk about the episode The Fly, which some people really hate. That's where there's a fly that's contaminating the lab. I love it. I think it kind of feels a bit like a short story, and it's a nice break in the action. Face Off, end of season 4, is outstanding as well. Maybe a little bit over the top as far as the Gus's end, but I think it works to, highlight some of the imagery in the series. I don't think there's many bad episodes of Breaking Bad. I think the best episodes are the finales of the seasons, generally speaking. So that's why I kind of felt like it was maybe a bit redundant to talk about a lot of episodes, because it's, with Breaking Bad, it is a slow, momentous build to a big kind of climax, and that happens basically at the end of most seasons, as you can imagine. I love the ending to season 5, part 1. I think the first 3 episodes in general are also really, really strong. But I digress, as I don't think there's much point talking about that. Like, I could talk about moments that are fantastic. Walt throwing the pizza is a minor one that just came to my head. The box cutter episode, just so violent that it's outstanding. The train heist, Walt coming back to save Jesse and rolling over the 2 drug dealers with their cars. Like, I could go on and on, but it's really just, it's a great show. I know some people don't like it, but for me, it's fantastically done. Characters, I don't even know what characters to mention, because I think one thing I really like about Breaking Bad is there were so many shows where it was just like, these are all the bad guys, and it was kind of pretty obvious. Whereas with Breaking Bad, it kind of branched out to show us kind of small people, like even like someone like, I think his name is Joe, the guy who wrecks the cars. Like, just that small element of the criminal world, I really enjoyed that. And I think out of the named characters, there's not many who are bad. I think it'd be easier to name characters that are not interesting, which would be, Walt Jr. isn't very interesting. Skyler has her moments, but overall, she's only there to be a foil for Walt. Same with Marie. I think she's not a particularly interesting character, but like, you go through the list, like obviously Walt and Jesse are up the top, like as impressive characters. Saul Goodman, Bob Odenkirk is fantastic in that role. Gives the show some much needed levity. And when he interacts with the dark stuff, it's fantastic. Even his bodyguards, Huel and QB, I think his name's QB, Bill Burr's character anyway. Like they're great foils. They even have their moments, you know. Mike, obviously, like Mike is one of my favorite characters on television. He's just so well written. You can tell a lot of research went into making that character. Gus, fantastic as well. I love Todd. He's such a psychotic piece of shit. But he's like one of those characters, and I'm going to say this when I'm talking about El Camino. He's like one of those characters that doesn't realize he's the bad guy, which I love. Tuco, you know, the cousins. You can go on and on forever about some of the characters in this show. Well, not forever. I mean, you probably would run out of characters eventually, I guess. But yeah, it's fantastic. I can't stop talking about Breaking Bad. What I am going to talk about is El Camino, which was kind of one of the reasons I wanted to talk about Breaking Bad. The timing just sort of worked out with a continuation of Breaking Bad with El Camino. I went up on Netflix, I think 2 weeks ago now. I'm going to say spoilers for this, but at the same time, like it's pretty obvious. But okay, if you haven't seen it, if you don't want to hear spoilers for El Camino, skip to the last few minutes of the show. So El Camino takes place immediately after Breaking Bad. We really begin with Jesse breaking out from the white supremacists. I think the biggest thing I can say, and I guess this is a knock against it, is that it feels completely inessential. It exists with one purpose in mind, really, and that is to give Jesse a happy ending. And it's basically what you would expect it to be, as far as Jesse had talked in one of the episodes about going to Alaska. And that's kind of basically what he does, you know. There's not a lot to it. If you didn't see this, I don't think it would add or take away from your experience watching the show. It really just feels like a bit of a footnote. I have notes that I took as I was watching it. I think it's fine. To be honest, it's not bad. It's not great, but it just sort of is. It was cool to be back in this world, but as I said, very inessential. So first thing I wrote down was that the filming of it looks a lot better as far as quality goes and time, which is weird. I don't know if it was just this was shot with better equipment. I'm not sure. It looks a little bit weird. It's at the point now where, as well, enough time has passed that some of these characters just don't look the same. Particularly Jesse Plemons as Todd. He's put on a bit of weight since, I think, I'm not sure what project it would have been for, but yeah, he looks obviously very different, and considering it's meant to be around the same time, that's kind of a bit noticeable. But again, you can overlook it. I did like our film starts with Jesse kind of showing up at Badger and Skinny Pete's door, and it's fantastic. Those guys slip back into their characters so well, and that was probably one of my favorite moments, was kind of seeing them interact. Again, it really felt like, exactly like time hadn't moved on. That was kind of like a lot of parts of this. I felt like, oh, we're so far removed from this, but this was the part where it felt like, oh, nothing has changed. We had a cameo from Mike at the beginning. It was kind of pointless, and I think that's the problem with a lot of this. We have a lot of flashbacks and that kind of thing, and I'm not sure if it necessarily adds to the story, or is it just a case of let's fill in a few gaps that don't need filling in, pad out this movie, and give a chance to get these characters back in the movie. And I think that's a detriment to the movie as a whole. Jesse having kind of post-traumatic stress disorder is a bit of a downer. It doesn't shy away from the reality of the situation, though, which is quite good. I think one thing I thought was odd is that Breaking Bad has always been a big proponent of colour. And the lighting of this and the colour in this felt a bit darker. It made the thing feel a bit cheaper, a bit less polished, I don't know. And maybe it was meant to reflect the content. It's a bit darker, and eventually it gets a bit lighter because things work out better. We had, as I mentioned, Joe earlier. Joe was back in it. Badger and Skinny Pete, I said, are fantastic. It was lovely that they were, like, even though some of them are kind of criminal and scumbags, it was so nice to see how genuine their friendship was. Like, how they just look out for him and look out for each other. You know, Skinny Pete says, just say nothing, just go. And he said, like, I swear to God, dude, this nearly made me cry. I don't know why, because it felt so real. It felt like guys that, you know, when it's going to be a weird thing to say, but like, you know, when guys want to say something to each other, but they don't have the emotional maturity to say something because they're like, oh, that wouldn't be very manly. Like, where he goes like, just go, and he says, you're my hero. When he said you're my hero, I was like nearly in tears. I was like, oh my God. Yeah, like it's the equivalent of saying, like, you know, when Han Solo says like I love you, I know. It's like that to me, and it was so good seeing that moment. I just loved seeing those characters together. But that was it for them, and we move on to a Todd cameo, and they kind of have a little adventure where Todd's trying to get money from somewhere. He hit it, and he killed the person to do so. I always like, I was talking about Todd there. I always liked the relationship between Todd and Jesse, just because, like I said, Todd doesn't seem to have as the bad guy, and Jesse isn't always sure how to react to him. He's a bit unpredictable. You know, it was a good little side adventure, and it gets on to one of the best scenes of the film. Was the, you know, Breaking Bad has always been great at building tension, and the scene where they're in the house and we have fake cops show up and take, you know, he takes the cop hostage and they're not cops. I just thought that was fantastic. Really tense, really well done. And of course, that's basically, if it wasn't for that element and that storyline, there would be nothing really in this movie. They more or less confirm Lydia's dead as well. The parents of Jesse are still kind of pieces of shit, but they get a bit of, you know, they get a little bit of chance to redeem themselves, a tiny bit. There's a lot of callbacks to the series, you know, that we see the tarantula, obviously Alaska, a few other things like that as well. I did say I think it seems cheap, but it also would have been even less, like it would have stood out even more if it came off as really expensive, you know, like if it was just a big bombastic movie. I think the problem with this is, you know, everyone was like the Breaking Bad movie, and traditionally, when it's like a series goes from TV to movie, we're like, oh, it's going to be bigger and better, and it really speaks to the quality of Breaking Bad that it kind of felt like it could have been a movie anyway. This feels like a step down, like, as far as the budget and the quality of it goes, but it is, again, quite entertaining. The problem with the sequel movie, I addressed this already, is a lot of the characters aren't available anymore, so there's a lot of flashbacks. I've mentioned all the people we've seen so far. The cinematography I thought was great. We got some time lapses like the original Breaking Bad as well. Cinematography in Breaking Bad was always pretty great. You know, a lot of POV shots, and some of that stuff was really good. Robert Forrester, which it was very unfortunate, he actually passed away, I think the day of or the day after this came out. He's an old school actor, man. He gives such a great, stern, subtle performance. I thought he was really good. He kind of is the person who disappears with people. You know, he's only maybe 2 episodes of the original series, but it was good seeing him. He gave a really good performance as the person who makes people disappear. And yeah, we had the epilogue, you know, about giving Jesse kind of a happy ending, a little bit. I should have said that. I was talking about how the genre of Breaking Bad has always felt like it's a Western. And of course, we finally get, you know, the Western element where we have a shootout. Kind of a, you know, draw. And Jesse's got a gun hidden under him. That was fantastic. It really felt like that was the most Western the show has ever been, you know, and it actually felt a little bit kind of like Han Solo-ish, to me. At least, you know, and I love the little detail that his jacket is on fire, because, you know, Breaking Bad has always had like those minor things of what would really happen. You know, things aren't like the movies, and it kind of felt like that was a moment there. And of course, I felt like there was a certain poetry to it, kind of a certain symmetry to Jesse storming the welding place with a gun compared to Walt going to the white supremacists in the finale. Really good scene. I really enjoyed that part. Of course, we had the Walter White cameo we have to talk about. It seemed like it was just set during season 2. I'm not sure how I feel about this, to be honest. I haven't fully thought about this. Walt, we basically... Well, first of all, that ball cap is horrendous, but he's got a big bubble head on him. It kind of reframes Walt earlier. Like, we were watching the show, it always felt like Walt was on a certain path, he wanted certain things, and by the end, it turns out he just did it for himself and liked it. And it feels like back in season 2, they just basically put this in there to be like, hey, he wanted to do this all along. This is his legacy. And it's like, okay, fine. Finally, the movie ends after Jesse gets to Alaska. He leaves a letter for presumably Brock, and we get a cameo from Jane, of course, played by Kristen Ritter. It's pretty bittersweet. It kind of reminds of the life Jesse could have had, you know. And it's basically make your own decisions, you know, do it for yourself, whatever. And then it ends. Yeah, like I said, it's pretty inessential. It's basically like this would have just been like, I think actually they said that Aaron Paul basically said like this is what the ending he imagined in an AMA. And yeah, you know, if someone had just said it, I would have believed it. I don't think we necessarily need to see it, but it's nice to be back in this world. It's not bad. It's just not vital to watch. Alright? So that is the end of our Breaking Bad discussion. Right, I said I fulfilled my wrestling quota. I made a few wrestling references, but that is enough. You know what it's time for.
It's that time of the week where Tompott justifies his place on the Phoenix Wrestling Network.
That's right, I need to prove I belong in the Phoenix Wrestling Network. And to do that, I go to randomcelebritygenerator.com, find a celebrity in 3 clicks, and have 6 connections to make it connected to wrestling. So here we go. 1, 2, and 3. Okay. Kristen Dunst. Oh, that could not be any easier. Actually, this is the second time I've used this movie. So Kristen Dunst is in Spider-Man, and so is Macho Man Randy Savage. Let's do another one. I've connected that one before. We say that one won't count. Okay. 2 and 3. Okay, here's a random celebrity. No, she's a poker player. That's not going to help. He's a... oh, no. Okay. There we go. Okay, someone I actually know. I got a football player and I got a poker player, which I don't know who they are. That would have been no good. I have Matt Damon here. Right. Matt Damon is in... Oh god, this was a bad idea. I should have just stuck with Kirsten Dunst. Matt Damon is in Ocean's... Oh, Matt Damon is in Ocean's 11 with George Clooney. George Clooney dated Stacy Keibler, baby. We're out of here. Oh, shoot. Listen, Mark, I'm trying to keep this under 2 hours. It was a rushed show. I'm sorry. We'll make time for you. The next episode, that okay? Awesome. Right, 2 weeks' time, roughly. Next episode is going to be me talking about China's impact on the film industry, video games, etc. If you have any thoughts on that, let me know. The way you can do that, you can get me on Instagram, popcultpod, all one word, at pop_pod on... at pop_cult_pod, on Twitter. Email me, popcultpod@gmail.com, Facebook, popcultcompound, or, I don't know, just shout out your window. I'll probably hear it here. You live close enough, don't you? Anyway. Sorry if the episode was a little bit rushed. Had a lot to catch up on. It's under 2 hours, so that's good, I guess. I don't know. Wherever you listen to this, please give it a positive review and subscribe, of course, to the Phoenix Wrestling Network. I'm out, because I cannot spell cult without you.
The Phoenix Wrestling Network. Subscribe today wherever you get your podcast.